I'm looking at that same write-up. Before we move on to PHP, there's one quick point that you may want to see. Sometimes if we saw that Microsoft Visual Studio is used to compile Apache from open source. Sometimes what may happen is on your operating system, one of the distributable files may be missing, in which case you will get an error when you're trying to install Apache. This can be easily solved by first installing redistributable for Visual Studio. You can either Google search it or you can click on this link that I have mentioned earlier. Okay, once you install this, your subsequent Apache PHP installation should be perfect. Okay, now I'm coming to the PHP side of things. You should take the time to read the official PHP documentation. Well worth it. Now, again, we are going to download the latest PHP binaries. There is an official site for it, which is windows.php.net. windows.php.net/download. So this is the official distribution site. Now, if you remember, again, those parameters I have to consider. The first parameter that we spoke about was whether 32-bit or 64-bit, and I want 64-bit, right? And the second is which version of Visual Studio has been used to compile. That you can see here, VC11, right? For Apache, we used VC11. Now, I'm going to talk about the third parameter, which I had not mentioned earlier, that is threading consideration. Threading or multi-threaded nature or thread safe is basically a design feature of the application. Multi-threads can be used to make your application faster, more utilizing the capability of your processor. For my purposes, I want a thread safe. Now, unfortunately, when I tried running in my experiment, when I was doing a non-thread safe, I found a critical file missing. So I will not recommend you to use non-thread safe downloads at all. And PHP 5.6.11 is the latest version, but for my reasons, because this is much more stable, since it's there from a long time, I'm going to use PHP 5.5. 5.6, if you prefer, will function perfectly fine. I have some old versions of the code which has been perfectly tested on PHP 5.5, so this is what I'm going to go with. Now, the parameters that I have to see is whether it is VC11. Yes, this is VC11. I don't want the non-thread safe. This is thread safe, but it is x86 means 32-bit, so I don't want this. Again, this is VC11 x84 non-thread safe. I don't want this. This is the one that I want. I can click here and download it. But again, to speed things up, I have already downloaded it. And it is here. To install this, again, this is just a matter of extract files. I want to extract it to my C:\root folder. I also recommend that you have this kind of a structure or a file folder name. Don't use anything with a blank space in it. Okay, so great. Now I have extracted PHP. Now to configure it to make it run. The very first thing that we have to do is create the php.ini file. Absolutely important to run PHP. Now you can see there are two files that has been kindly provided by PHP development team. Since this installation is a development environment for me, I'm going to choose php.ini for development. There are some differences between the two ini files. php.ini. This ini file, php.ini file is a very important file for PHP to function properly. It is a set of configurations needed to run PHP. Now, I have to edit one or two things in this file. So you should open a simple ASCII editor to edit it. Do not use something like Microsoft Word or something which is a non-ASCII editor. Do not use it. So I am going to edit it with Notepad++. One small thing to note, anything that starts with a semicolon is a comment. It's basically an explanation, nice explanation of what configuration options you have. A bunch of things you may want to read this sometime. Okay, but for our installation, I'm quickly going to go back here. Again, in this writing, there are references to different versions. These are slightly different from the ones I have installed in this video, so don't worry about it. Use the same logic I have mentioned to choose for your own installation. You can very well take what he has mentioned also, but this is a little dated. The first chain that we want to do is I'm going to search for this keyword extension underscore dir. That is nothing but a particular directory name that is configurable. You can see there is an example given here very kindly by PHP. We're just going to use this. It has been commented out so you can make changes. I'm just going to uncomment this. Basically what it means is the directory, the name of the directory which has all the loadable extensions for PHP. You can see in the installation folder here, PHP, there is actually a folder called ext, which has got all the DLLs that PHP needs. And we just have to configure it exactly the same. So I have uncommented this line and say I am basically saying extension directory for me is the folder called ext. It's perfectly fine. I just have to save it. That is the bare minimum that I need. Configuration change. There are many other things that you can fine tune, but I would not recommend you to do it until you are very comfortable doing it. Now I have to do some configuration changes for Apache to recognize PHP files and execute it. What I have to do is I have to go to the Apache configuration location. Where can I find that? This is the Apache that I installed a few minutes back, Apache 2. Now, there is a folder called conf, which basically stands for configuration items. Now, this is the most important Apache configuration file. HTTPD, you saw HTTPD actually stands for Apache. .conf is the configuration file for that. Again, I want to open it with a plain ASCII editor. Notepad++ for me works. Now it has opened in this folder. Here, what I want to do is I want to tell Apache that any files on the server with an extension .php should be handled by PHP executable. The PHP code has to be executed, right? Or rather interpreted. The way I can do that is to load the PHP module correctly. How can I do that? Now let me quickly show you the PHP folder. If you look here, there is one file called php file apache 2_4. This is the critical file for Apache to load to be able to recognize PHP code. and Apache configuration should point to this file. How can I do that? With basically this command has to be given. Load module PHP file, and this has, I will just copy this. There are two very important points I want to point out for you. The first thing is, you saw in php.ini file, anything starting with the semicolon is ignored by the application. So this is just a comment for your purpose. Similarly, in Apache's configuration file, the hash symbol is a comment symbol. So anything that precedes with a hash is basically ignored. You have to make sure the command that you are giving, the configuration item that you are giving, hash does not have a hash symbol. Load module, PHP5 module. The next point that you have to notice is that while you are giving the Windows path inside Apache configuration, the symbol that is used is a / in Unix style. Actually, in Windows, you are more used to using the \, but do not do it. Use the / and Apache will read this properly, will understand this properly. So you remember to use the / in a path. This path incidentally matches exactly to where I have installed my PHP. You may have chosen to do different. For example, you may have given PHP 5.6 or something. Whatever you have chosen, make sure the path is perfect. This path exactly matches what I have chosen. And this is the same file name. Make sure this file exists in your PHP. So remember, do this correctly and it will load the module perfectly. There is one more item that I have to paste inside. Just copy this and right after this you can paste it. Let us quickly see what it has. So basically what it is saying is load module. If module loaded PHP 5 module, which is the same as this, if this has been successfully loaded, then the index files to see in this order: index.html, index.php. What this add handler does is very important for PHP functioning properly. Basically, it says anything with a .php file extension .php should be handled by PHP5 module. And there is one more configuration item here. Basically, it points to the PHP folder on our computer, PHP ini directory. Basically, what it says is the location where php.ini is located. Okay, that's it. I'm going to save this. Now, let us test if PHP is running properly. To do that, okay, that's it. And this should be sufficient for us to have installed. Now, before we wind up, we have to test if PHP is being properly served. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a very simple PHP page and see that it is properly served by Apache. Let me go back to my editor. I'll just create a new file. I have a simple piece of code, which is basically PHP info function is called. I want to save this. As I said, it should be in the htdocs folder. PHP. I am going to just give it a name, php info dot. Since this is a .php extension, it should be properly served by Apache. Before we do that, you may remember that we had installed the service and started Apache. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to stop PHP, uninstall the service, and then reload PHP in the same fashion again. I can do that by first stopping PHP. Okay, service has stopped. Now I want to uninstall. There is an uninstall command also. All I have to do is httpd -k uninstall. Almost all the commands have the same style of, right? So Apache 2.5 service has been removed successfully. Now I want to reload. I'm just going to install now. Apache 2.5 services successfully installed. I want to start it. Great. So it has now been started, and Apache should now be able to handle the PHP file. Just to make it more fun, I'm going to open a new browser. This is actually Chrome now. Localhost. Great. So this basically means that Apache is working fine. Now I have to check for PHP. My file that I had given was php info.php, so I want to make sure this is running fine. Great. So this php info basically returns a lot of the configuration values for my PHP installation. So PHP is being handled perfectly. That's it. And you saw how easy it is to install Apache and PHP on Windows. The only thing you have to be very careful about are the three parameters which has to match exactly between the two. Two of those parameters have to match exactly. That is whether you are choosing 32-bit or 64-bit versions of the application. The second is which version of Visual Studio has been used to compile. As long as you keep these two parameters matching between Apache and PHP, it will work perfectly fine. The third parameter which you have to remember for PHP specifically is that you have to choose a thread safe version, and don't pick the non-thread safe version, because in my trials I had a lot of issues making it run, and I saw there was one critical file missing also for whatever reason in the distribution. So that's it. Good luck. Signing out. Bye.